child predators getting attacked in court. Now, before we get started, I'll say this. I don't know what happens to these predators in this video, but no matter what it is, they deserve every bit of it. No, I'll change that. In fact, I'll say they deserve 50 to 100 times more than whatever happens in this video. Because when it comes to me, when you prey on kids, whatever happens to you next, you have zero sympathy from me. And that's just how I stand on it. Because you take an opportunity, this moment, to be disgusting to a young man or a young lady, possibly changing the trajectory of their entire lives. You change them in that moment, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, just for you to be nasty in that moment. Stuff that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives, possibly. Just to have that one moment. It's disgusting. Now that you guys know how I feel about this whole thing, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. I want to see you guys in the comments. Let's watch this video. Yeah, I don't blame him.
I need 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
I have.
Would you do that?
That is not
Yes
how
or
our.
no?
No, sir, I can't.
Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system.
He said I'm about to change that legal system right now.
Trust our families. Taking my child.
Hey man, can you blame these fathers? I don't blame them.
This is Larry Nassar.
The word Nassar will permanently be associated with child sexual abuse.
Who was facing multiple sexual abuse charges in Michigan. Nassar, who served as the team doctor for USA Gymnastics,
Oh my
was accused
God.
of sexually assaulting hundreds of gymnasts under the guise of medical treatment.
This is why when it comes to gymnastics, you gotta have a female doctor in those situations. You know, and this is not saying that there aren't men out there who are doctors who have female patients who don't make them feel comfortable, who aren't great doctors, because there's tons out there. I don't want to make it sound like I'm generalizing all male doctors who have women patients. But what I'm saying is that in these situations, I think it will make more sense for them to have women as their trainers and as their doctors, especially for these young ladies. That's just me. It just works better for me.
Many of whom were Olympians. Police said Nassar manipulated the athletes into believing that he was their trusted friend and advisor.
And that's how they do it.
Protect your athletes. You have to let them know that we care. You have to not let them know, but let them feel it. Let them understand it. Let them breathe it.
Nassar was brought in for questioning, where he claimed that he was in fact the victim.
That's my.
Come on, man.
Torture, I guess you could say that. Yes, she was victimized. Yes, I was victimized to myself.
Instead, Nassar blamed the young women he victimized, saying they should have said something sooner.
I don't get it. Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication.
Okay.
Nassar also defended his medical procedures.
If you don't have patient confidence and patient trust, you would have been having my here how many times?
Right.
Okay, especially when I'm doing this on 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, okay, with their parents there. But I'm obviously doing a doggone good job explaining things, okay, because what?
However, authorities botched up the investigation, and Nassar was initially released. But as more and more victims came forward, Nassar once again faced the music.
Has there been another complaint? I'm just so confused right now.
The reason I'm asking is that we did have another complaint.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a patient from a while ago. Do you ever get aroused during these exams?
I shouldn't be getting an erection during an exam.
The reason why I'm talking to you about this is because this young girl and her mother both observed this on more than one occasion during treatment.
Nassar again tried to defend his actions and played the victim card. But this time, his game was up.
If there was arousal, it's you know what I mean, like it would be because of whatever. I don't know, but I'm not trying to. You know what I mean?
Whatever. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
When you're a guy, sometimes you get an erection. It's like blindsiding someone. You know what I mean? It's like you're doing this, and you're doing it for good to help someone, and they're giving you the positive feedback that you're helping them. How do I know I'm hurting them?
Eventually, Nassar pleaded guilty to multiple charges of criminal sexual conduct. At his sentencing, more than 150 victims gave powerful and emotional testimonies.
The word Nassar will permanently be associated with child sexual abuse.
What kind of a person has the audacity to sexually assault a child in front of their mother?
That's
I will
disgusting,
be out
man.
in the real world, thriving, empowering, and standing by others while you rot in a prison cell the rest of your life.
A victim described how Nassar destroyed her family.
You used my body for 6 years for your own gratification. That is unforgivable. You convinced my parents that I was a liar. My father and I did our best to patch up our tattered relationship before he committed suicide in 2016.
The mother of one of the victims also spoke on behalf of her now deceased daughter.
And I had been in the room with her during her examination, as usual. And I said, "Are you ready to go to lunch?" And she's like, "No, Mom, I just want to go home." And I said, "What's wrong? Are you in pain?" And she said, "Mom, I just want to go home." And I said, "Okay." So we got in the car and I said, and she started bawling. And I said, "Chelsea, tell me what's wrong." And she said, "Mom," and they weren't gloved. And I said, "Chelsea, I was right there in the room." And she goes, "You couldn't see what was going on, Mom." And she said, "He hurt me." And
why is he
2009, she took her own life because she couldn't deal with the pain anymore.
However,
that's what I'm
no
saying.
one
That
could have imagined what was to follow when the father of a victim asked the
okay, so with that whole situation, and the reason why I feel so upset about these type of situations, I mean, for obvious reasons. My mom worked at a place where she dealt with kids and who were assaulted and things like that, a place where they try to get them the help that they need, provide them with things they need, whether the person that victimized them was their parents or whoever the case may be. So I've seen these different stories. So whenever I see this stuff, it kind of infuriates me. But in the case of that doctor, for one, the things that he's correct about, and I'm not trying to defend him at all, is that sometimes guys do have erections randomly because they're guys. And sometimes it just happens. Also, when you're dealing with people and they don't immediately tell you that you're making them uncomfortable, then you may believe that what you're doing is okay and there's nothing wrong going on. But at the end of the day, the fact that he pled guilty, that pretty much just leaves all doubt out the window. I don't know if at that point he felt like this is too much. I can't even, there's no way I can keep fighting this off. Just take me to prison. Or if he was just like, yeah, they got me, just take me to prison. But either way, this is why I say that, you know, it'd be a better situation if there is a female doctor in there with these young ladies, because you don't even have to come up with that, you know. And then the fact that he did these things while their mom was still in a room and then one of the girls took her life because of that situation, you know, it's hard to believe that he was doing anything else but what they were saying in court. It's hard to believe that.
The judge to address Nassar directly.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
I understand.
That is not how our... No, sir, I can't.
Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that.
When denied, he decided to take matters into his own hands.
Well, I'm gonna have to get stuff.
Yeah. Yep. I get it. If any man with a daughter don't feel this way, or at least feel upset about what he's going through, I don't know what to tell you.
Give me 1 minute with that.
Grieving father was
Also, I just want to add two really quick, guys. Sorry. Those aren't the only reasons that I think that, you know, the guy is guilty. You get multiple people coming out. I know people, you know, talk about situations where people come out and a lot of them aren't telling the truth and they want publicity. But what publicity would these kids get out of saying this? They don't. It's not like they get to write a book or anything like a celebrity or something. Like, these are multiple kids and even moms with the kids coming out and saying these things. So
was arrested and taken away by court officers. After the dust settled, Judge Rosemarie Aquilina had some harsh words for the defendant.
Because you are guilty, aren't you? Are you guilty, sir?
I said my plea, exactly.
As much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you. Because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. You have done nothing to control those urges, and anywhere you walk, destruction will occur. I find that you don't get it, that you're a danger. You remain a danger. I am a judge who believes in life and rehabilitation when rehabilitation is possible. I don't find that's possible with you. Your decision to assault was precise, calculated, manipulative, devious, despicable.
Eventually, it was time for Nassar to learn his fate.
I'm giving you 175 years, which is 21
Wow.
months.
Yeah, put him under the prison.
I'm so horribly sorry that this was like a match that turned into a forest fire out of control. And I pray the rosary every day for forgiveness for I want them to heal. I want this community to heal. I have no animosity towards anyone. I just want healing. It's time.
You use that position of
Yeah, healing is the last thing you're going to get, and that's the thing you're going to need when you get into prison and them inmates find out why you in there, for sure.
that you had in the most vile way to abuse children. I agree that now is a time of healing, but it may take them a lifetime of healing while you spend your lifetime behind bars.
Ultimately, the disgraced doctor was sentenced to 175 years in prison. While Larry Nassar's case is one of the worst sexual assault scandals in the history of sports, what happens when you taunt a grieving father in court? Like in the case of Michael Madison, who's on trial for multiple murders in Ohio. According to reports, Madison kidnapped and killed 3 women in 2013 before dumping their bodies in plastic bags near his home in East Cleveland.
It was a call about a bad smell that led police to this abandoned home and garage. 2 of the bodies were found here. The 3rd victim was found in an overgrown field about 100 yards away.
Police also found decomposed human remains at his apartment.
There was evidence of decomposition fluid, several parts of the apartment building. There were maggots that were attached to the decomposition fluid.
Madison was arrested and charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder. If convicted, he could be facing the death penalty. At his trial, the defense claimed the killings were spontaneous and in the heat of the moment.
That each one of these individuals was killed with a sudden eruption of violence, not a considered course of action as required by prior calculation and design. He made no effort to bury these bodies and really conceal them, despite the fact that they're in fairly obvious areas.
But the prosecution argued that Madison's actions were calculative and premeditated.
He killed them in the same way, at the same place, and in a short time frame. Then he disposed of their bodies. To avoid detection from his crimes, he tied 2 of the victims up with duct tape, placing their legs on each side of their head and bending the body in half.
Eventually, Madison was found guilty of all charges as the victims' family members cried tears of joy.
Number 9.
Yes.
Number 10.
Yes.
We therefore unanimously find that the sentence of death should be imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison.
At his sentencing, Van Terry, a victim's father, addressed his daughter's killer.
Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this crime. It's touched our families, taking my child.
He looked straight at Madison, who grinned at him off camera. This is when Terry exploded. Fortunately, Terry was quickly apprehended and taken out of the courtroom. He did not face any additional charges. A short while later.
Yeah, I mean, I agree how that dad feel. Would I personally have done something like that? I would have to say no right now, but sometimes you don't know what you would do in that moment. I'm sure that dad didn't walk in there thinking like, I'm going to attack him today. But when he saw that grin on the face of the person who killed his daughter, that set him off. That will turn any dad into a superhero at that moment and go after that guy. Grinning is crazy, man.
Judge Nancy McDonnell addressed the court.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being could do to not 1, but 3 human beings.
She called the murders an act of sheer inhumanity.
It is incomprehensible. You cajoled, lured, and deceived Shatisha Shealy, Angela Deskins, and Sherelda Terry to your apartment for your depraved purposes.
Finally, it was time for the serial killer to learn his sentence.
Upon consideration of the relevant evidence, the testimony exhibits admitted in mitigation, it is a judgment of this court that the aggravated circumstances of course of conduct, felony murder, kidnapping, felony murder, rape, of which the defendant was convicted,
outweigh the mitigating factors by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant Michael Madison on counts 1, 4, and 7.
Ultimately, Madison received the death penalty. He will live on Ohio's death row. While Michael Madison felt the full wrath of his victim's father, how does it compare to being attacked by...
And even though he got a death sentence, personally, he got it easy. For what he did, he got it pretty easy. I know there's not more you can do to a human being, but just give this, just kind of, balancing it out based upon what he actually did.
Another prisoner. Like in the case of Christopher Elwell, who's facing child molestation charges in New Hampshire. According to reports, 28-year-old Elwell sexually assaulted a 4-year-old at his Dover apartment while the
Throw
child
him
was
under
having
the
a
jail, bro.
sleepover
That is
with his 9-year-old daughter. Elwell was arrested and charged with aggravated felonious sexual assault. The prosecution said Elwell showed the minor several sexually implicit videos.
They described him showing them videos of sexual acts similar to the ones that she had done.
After initially denying the allegations,
4-year-old,
Elwell
man.
eventually pleaded guilty. He also pled guilty for failing to register as a sex offender, having been previously convicted on a different charge.
The defendant was required to register as a sex offender, had been living at 12 Mineral Park Drive off and on, but more than 5 times a month, and had not changed his registration with the Somersworth Police Department.
After learning his fate, Elwell was sat down with another prisoner, Josiah Davies, who was awaiting his hearing. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Davies started headbutting Elwell repeatedly. Elwell seemed impassive as court deputies quickly apprehended Davis.
He a prisoner, and he even know that that's crazy. Now, I don't know what he did, but it obviously got him upset.
Charged with felony assault. As for Elwell, he was ultimately sentenced to 7.5 to 15 years in prison. While some may say Christopher Elwell received justice from an unexpected source, what happens when the person to deliver the justice is your cellmate? Like in the case of Stephen Sanderson, who's facing murder charges in Michigan.
The reason I killed him was because he was a child.
Interview with prisoner Sanderson, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and explain to me basically what you told the staff when you came out of the cell.
According to reports, Sanderson, who was already serving life without parole in state prison for a 1991 murder case, attacked and killed 67-year-old Ted Dyer in their cell. Later, Sanderson gave a chilling confession to the police.
Why don't you just go ahead and tell us what happened?
All right, I guess he decided to clear his conscience or something, but, he told me what he was in prison for, that he had, was accused of raping an 11-year-old girl, and he got 25 to life for it, and, I told him that's enough, I don't want to hear any more. I first, punched him a couple times, still wouldn't shut up, still kept telling me he wanted to explain that he didn't do it, that he was being set up and all this stuff, and I don't know, I just got mad and then hit him, and then I killed him. When I hit him and knocked him out, and then I took the shoelaces out of his shoes, tied them together, wrapped it around his neck, and killed him.
He eventually pleaded guilty to the murder charge.
How do you wish to plead to the second count of murder in the second degree? Guilty?
Yes, sir.
And doing so freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Doing so because you are guilty?
Yes, sir.
All right.
In court, Sanderson justified taking the life of his cellmate by giving a specific reason.
The reason I killed him was because he was a child molester.
Back in 2014, Dyer was convicted of sexual criminal conduct for molesting a 9-year-old girl.
All right, well, he was my bunkie, and I had found out that he was in prison for child molestation. Really bad case. So that night he was trying to justify why he did it, and I just told him to be quiet, and he would have to leave in the morning to find a new cell, but he continued to talk about it and try to justify it. So he was a little bit bigger than me, so I got down and I hit him in his face a few times, and when he fell, I wrapped a cord around his neck and I took his life.
As a formality to the guilty plea, Sanderson's lawyer confirmed the basics.
But you did in fact kill him? Oh, sure. And you intended to? Oh, sure, yes.
At his sentencing, Sanderson addressed the public response he received following the murder.
Since this all happened, it's kind of been, people think I'm some kind of hero. Well, I'm actually not. I just, did what I thought was best.
He said Dyer's real judgment was yet to come.
I've been getting these emails saying that, it's not my position to judge anybody, and I want to make it quite clear that I didn't judge him. I know God is the only judge we have. I've just set the appointment up.
Sanderson showed no remorse for his actions and said he would...
That's not funny. I've never heard someone say it like that before. That he had that plan. He had that saying planned out in his head. He wanted to say that
do it again
for a long
given the
time.
Chance.
I don't feel bad for what I did. You know, I feel bad for maybe his family or something. But as far as remorse towards him, no.
While Steven Sanderson believes he did a good deed by killing another person, what happens when brother attacks brother in court?
Oh, that's his brother?
In the case of Quinn Bowes, who was charged with the death of his infant in Indiana. According to reports, 23-year-old Bowes is accused of killing his 11-week-old son at their home in Gibson County.
In Gibson County, a plea deal has been reached in the case of a man accused in the death of his son.
Bowes initially told authorities the child had stopped breathing after falling from his bed. However, an investigation revealed that the infant died from blunt force trauma to the head. Bowes eventually pleaded guilty to domestic battery, resulting in death. Then something shocking happened at his sentencing. A heavily shackled Bowes was leaving the courtroom when he was met with a flurry of punches.
Yeah, because that was his nephew too, so I understand.
The attacker was Bowes' brother and the baby's uncle, Jeremiah Hartley. Hartley was immediately arrested. He was given 179 days in jail for contempt and faces further misdemeanor battery charges.
They can cut that in half, like,
As for Bowes,
unless he got
he
priors.
was ultimately sentenced to 25 years in prison for murdering his son.
That's it, bro. I don't understand. Like, these numbers never make sense to me. Now, I understand that they're state to state, right? I get that it's state to state, but it's like, I don't know. Like, it's weird how you can get life in prison for this and then only 25 years for that. It doesn't make sense to me. But at the end of the day, I understand how these people feel about their child or their nephews or whoever getting, preyed on by these predators. Like, I get it. Like I said, these predators deserve everything that they've gotten. That doesn't apply to the one being murdered in prison. I wouldn't say like, hey, you see a child predator or whatever, just go murder them. I wouldn't. That's not the message I would put out there. But at the same time, when it comes to being in prison, they don't take those things too lightly, and there's consequences for a lot of these things as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Thank you guys for sharing this moment with me. I hope you guys have an amazing day.